Carlos Baleba, Elliot Anderson. They are following several midfielders for 2026.
We are going to see continued links with the likes of Elliot Anderson, of Adam Wharton, of Carlos Baleba.
So we're hearing a lot about United targeting Elliot Anderson this summer.
I mentioned Elliot Anderson a few weeks ago. Absolutely, Manchester United would love to sign him.
And you're probably thinking, after a big transfer spend last summer, the PSR questions that will return, United needing new sponsors and the shortest season in over 100 years. How much money do United actually have? Well, let me tell you more about United's financial situation. Right then, in this video, I'm going to try my best to simplify the financial situation so you can kind of get your head around it. I'm going to break it down into 5 points off the back of an excellent article from The Athletic, which covers a lot on United's commercial revenue, incomes, problems, what's going on, what's being done to solve the problems, and what's coming next. I'm going to break it down into 5 different points. I'm going to run through it as simply as I possibly can, and hopefully it will help you understand a bit more about our ability to sign someone like Elliot Anderson, who we all bloody want. Anyway, number 1 on my list. All right, I want to speak about the missing money, which kind of sounds like a bit of an ominous way to describe it, but I think it's a pretty fair way to describe it. Tezos was United's last training kit sponsor. We haven't had a training kit sponsor since last summer. You can see the financials here on the deal. 24 million was the value of the Tezos deal, and that's how much United have been missing out since last summer. You can do the maths. That's United losing out on a fair amount of money. Number 2, DXC Technology. You can see the shirt sleeve sponsor. That sponsorship expires at the end of this season. So we've not currently lost it yet, but given that we've not had a training ground kit sponsor replacement since last summer, United have got a lot of work to do to replace this deal, which again, reports suggest at the time that this was worth £20 million. So in total for those two, we're now talking 45 million. The missing money is what I'm talking about. Well, we haven't actually missed this money yet, but it will be missing in the summer when they leave. Now, this is a very interesting one, I think. Carrington, as it is now called, used to be called the Aon Training Complex. Did a little bit of digging. Turns out that deal was worth 120 million to Manchester United when we signed that with Aon back in 2013. And that was an 8-year deal. Now, that also included the training ground kit sponsorship. So it was the actual training ground itself and the kit. So technically, United could sign a deal like this with somebody. A new Aon deal, if you want to call it. If it was worth 120 million over 8 years back in 2013, well, I suppose we were the top of the world at that point in time. But given that numbers are still going up and United are signing the deal with Adidas and the deal with Snapdragon and those numbers are still going up, you'd think they would want this to be more. But maybe United are planning on a big Aon-style sponsorship deal that's the training kit and the training ground itself. That could be announced. But that's what I would call the missing money. The money that's being left off the table that kind of should be there and should always have been there. Number 1, that affects United. Number 2, the INEOS cuts and consequences of said cuts. We know that there's been a lot of redundancies at this football club. You can see here, United had 170 employees in the commercial department. Prior to all the cuts, that's gone down now to around about 129, a fall of 24%. The Athletic's use of the word decapitated, that's a strong use. But key figures who were involved in the bigger deals that we've got, whether it's Snapdragon, Snapdragon is Qualcomm, whether it was Tezos, I don't know. The others, they've left. And maybe that's left the department a little bit, I'm not going to say the word short, because we've brought people in, like Mark Armstrong's come in as a chief business officer from PSG to try and accelerate new styles of sponsorships and bigger and better sponsorships in the same way that he and actually Jean-Claude Blanc worked together a lot at PSG to turn them into a modern commercial behemoth. Now, Jean-Claude Blanc, according to The Athletic, has stepped back in. He's the INEOS executive. He stepped back in to help on the commercial side of things. It's kind of reached a point where even the Glazers apparently are looking at it going, hold on, should be making more money. If those greedy pricks are saying it, then you kind of understand the problems. Now, of course, the simple solution to this, get back in the Champions League. Because this is the first season where that penalty has hit United. There was a clause in the Adidas deal where if United didn't have Champions League football for 2 consecutive seasons, there was a penalty. That penalty, losing 10 mil of that 90 mil a season sponsorship, has hit this season. It's the first time that that's actually happened. So the massive shifter, the massive changer in this sort of commercial conversation and pitfalls and lost revenues here and there kind of changes as soon as we get back into the Champions League. Because we have a Champions League budget as a football club. Well, you need Champions League revenues and incomes. And we know full well that the broadcasting revenues have dropped significantly as a consequence, which has now hit commercial because Adidas penalties kicked in and will be in next season as well. So another 10 mil lost if we don't get Champions League football. Again, more money being lost. This is a key one as well. United were in a position of power a good few years ago. We were able to sort of navigate the fact that we weren't in the Champions League. We weren't winning things and still be commercially successful. That gap is now completely, no, I wouldn't say completely shut, but pretty much shut. You can see here. The past decade, United's commercial income has increased by a quarter. And in that time, City's has doubled. Arsenal, Liverpool and Chelsea have grown even faster. Spurs have gone up 300%. You can see they're in the red. Tottenham's commercial income was more than 200 mil short of United's in 2016. Just under 10 years later, that's now dropped to 50 mil. And United's earnings have only grown by 28 mil over the last decade. Look at that stagnation. It's a flat line. Down with COVID, slight recovery, and ever so slightly up on what it was before. It's club record, but compared to what other clubs around us have been doing in the same time. Now, of course, because there were smaller clubs, there were more games to be had there in comparison relatively. But that stat there of Spurs' commercial revenue was 200 mil short of ours and now is 50. Is worrying to say the least. And you just have to look at this. Arsenal, City and Liverpool, all above United, I think for the first time in the Delaware Money League. Spurs are next to us. That's never going to happen because they're still 120 odd mil short, well, euros. But it's reflective of a fallen giant. Certainly with we're still a giant, we're still in the top 8. But any power that we had and overall strength, it's now been leveled out massively. And last thing I want to speak about in terms of United's financials and power. The Athletic also goes on to describe this, which I think is quite an interesting point. It talks about INEOS and it talks about their approach to the commercial side of things. And they're effectively saying that the way that INEOS approach commercial sponsorships kind of sounds like they're removing a lot of the schmoozing. If anybody's ever done anything in corporate, you know, you got to schmooze someone, you got to schmooze a client, you got to give them a little bit more than maybe you should just to keep them happy, keep them on board. I imagine the exact same thing happening at Manchester United when it comes to sponsorships. But it sounds like INEOS are sort of pulling back on that. To quote The Athletic, INEOS' attitude is to deliver no more than what is written down in the black and white of a partnership contract, which goes back to what I said there, or what I wrote there, that results are now more important than ever, because the results, you don't have to schmooze as much when you're winning, because you're winning and everyone wants to be a part of it. But when you're not, the schmoozing, stop saying schmoozing, is doubly important. And it sounds like INEOS are pulling back on that. So I think overall, from a financial perspective, when it comes to Elliot Anderson, now we already know what the Q1 results were. United, they might have had a profit, but our cash, you can see there, our cash has gone down massively. 80 million now, cash in the bank, gone down from 150 12 months ago. Our credit card, we have spent 295 mil of an available 350. Our debt is as high as it's ever been. We're really reaching that crunch point now where there kind of is no more credit card to spend. There kind of is no more cash to spend in the bank. We've already sort of pulled, Barca levers, United have pulled their levers, and many, many a lever. Getting in the Champions League, it's so crucial for the next step. Because without that next season, there's going to have to be handbrakes on ambition, probably handbrakes on spending, and handbrakes on the next steps for the football club, because the finances have finally properly caught up with this club. Now, I might have said that last summer, but I didn't expect United to be able to. Maybe they'll be able to do it again. The limit's 350 mil now on the credit card. Boom, let's increase it to 500 mil. It's not sustainable. Maybe United would do that. But that's just like an overview of all the finances, and that's an excellent article from The Athletic. I encourage you to read it. There's more information in there. You can let me know what you think, but bringing in those sponsors, new training ground sponsor, I think needs to happen, and combine that with the training ground kit sponsor, get a new deal on the level that we got with Aon, get a new shirt sleeve sponsor. And actually get in the Champions League and be a good club again. That would help.